This might be the most toxic deck that I've ever played, and that means a lot coming from me. I mean, I've won regionals with some insanely disgusting decks, but this really is something else. I'm not going to be donking my opponent. I'm not going to be deleting cards from their hand. Nah, in fact, I'm actually going to be giving them prize cards for free. I'm going to be playing Mega Kangaskhan Fortress. So if you want to ruin your opponent's day, make sure that you stick around while I break down every card in my 60, and then try to prove just how legit this deck is by sleeving it up and trying to win a real tournament. Or at the very least, commit some absolute war crimes with these coin flips. The entire strategy of the deck revolves around perfectly manipulating our opponent's prize map to abuse some ridiculously powerful comeback mechanics. We've got 4 Mega Kangaskhan and a 2/2 Fortress line. That's it for Pokemon. In just about every single game, you want to play 2 Mega Kangaskhan EX and a single Fortress, who is really only here for its ability. Although I'm not going to spoil it right now, trust me, during the tournament, it gets a chance to do a lot more than just blow up. Anyway, Exploding Energy allows you to knock it out in order to search your deck for 5 Grass Energy, instantly powering up both of the Kangas, which are each beefy 300 HP 3 prizes capable of swinging for 200 damage or even more if you're lucky. However, this is all at the usually detrimental cost of feeding your opponent 2 free prize cards. But as you'll see, that's actually all part of the plan. Being behind in prizes gives us access to some broken options like counter catches and incredibly disruptive early Ionos. Plus, like I mentioned before, it helps establish a perfectly painful prize map for our opponents. They're essentially starting at 4 prizes off the bat, while our board consists of 2 3 prize Pokemon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They still have to functionally take 6 prizes. But it's even worse than that, since they'll be sitting on 1 prize for the majority of the game, allowing us to pull off some really nasty tricks like this insanely broken card. But we'll cover that a little bit later in the list. For Ball Search, we've got 4 Ultra Ball and 2 Nest Ball. I went for more Ultra Balls to ensure that we can always find Fortress and to allow for a bit of extra thinning in the late game, since it's not like we can use Nest Ball to bench extra guys and thin the deck in that way. 4 Counter Catcher is a no-brainer. We're immediately going behind in prizes 99% of the games. It can be particularly useful for picking off key targets in the early game to slow our opponents down. Now for the item that single-handedly revived this deck and gave it a massive upgrade, Jumbo Ice Cream. This one's an easy 4 of. It's probably my favorite Phantasmal Flames card and was practically designed for this deck specifically. Healing 80 off of an item with no downside is exactly what Kangaskhan needed to shore up a few of its previously questionable matchups like Gardevoir and Dragapult. And this tasty frozen treat pairs perfectly with our A-Spec, Pokevital A. There's a ton of A-Specs that are worth considering. Secret Box, Unfair Stamp, even Miracle Headset. But the idea of having another massive healing card was just too much to pass up. Lastly for our items, of course, we've got 4 Pokegear 3.0s. The deck plays 4 copies of 4 separate supporters, so being able to functionally pick and choose which ones you can access each turn is incredible. 4 Cypher Maniacs, superbly synergized with Kangaskhan's Run Errand ability. You get to cherry pick any 2 cards and then just immediately draw them. Alternatively, you can load up the top of your deck in preparation for next turn, or to protect yourself against Iono's disruption. Speaking of, Iono is another easy 4 of. Being able to immediately cut your opponent's hand down to only 4 cards is absurd while you're still drawing 6. And you'll almost always have a chance to Iono them to 1 at the end of the game, which is so much more devastating for your opponent than it is for you. 4 Boss's Orders, because sometimes you take too many prize cards and lose access to those counter catches. It is pretty important to recognize which one of these cards is more important in a specific game, and then prioritize using the other instead whenever possible. 4 Acerola's Mischief. This is the big one. You can use this card only if your opponent has 2 or fewer prize cards remaining. Choose one of your Pokemon in play. During your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage and effects from attacks done to that Pokemon by your opponent's Pokemon EX. So once that first Kangaskhan goes down, you can make the final boss essentially invincible for up to 4 consecutive turns. This card single-handedly pushes what would otherwise be a complete meme deck into legitimate viability. When it comes to stadiums, we've got 4 unique options that each serve a really cool purpose. First is Forest of Vitality. If you ever miss a turn 1 Pineco, this can allow you to catch up and still get a turn 2 Explosive Energy. And it's really easy to search the combo out with the help of Cypher Maniac. Alternatively, in some matchups, it can be really important to hold off on benching Pineco in order to surprise your opponent. left. For example, they may have access to Psyduck, but not preemptively bench it because they have no idea what you're playing. Because unfortunately, if they do bench the duck, there goes your primary game plan. Alternatively, you could just be scared of your opponent's potential to target and KO Pineco on turn 1. For example, a lucky Goldingo with Solrock and Prime Catcher. Honestly, I'm even considering playing a second copy just for prizing reasons. Next, we've got Team Rocket's Watchtower, and this might just be my favorite card in the deck. Now, it may seem counterintuitive when your entire draw engine revolves around a colorless Pokemon's ability, and that's because, well, it is, but it serves one key purpose: beating Cornerstone Ogerpon. And I swear, every time I mention this, I get about 100 different comments about how Cornerstone isn't a colorless Pokemon. Yes, I'm aware, I can read the cards. What it does is turn off Kangaskhan's ability, and without an ability, it can just straight up break through the wall. But now that I've explained it, that's 100 less comments. So go ahead, everyone, comment something now, anything, whatever you want. Go and tell me your favorite lizard, I don't know. Back on topic, it also doesn't hurt as a tech against Noctowl and Pidgeot as a way to make your Ionos really stick. Academy at Night is maybe the most cuttable card, but personally, I really love it. Obviously, another stadium bump never hurts, and the ability to stack cards on top of your deck is exactly what you need against many of the decks that run Iono. Whether it's stacking Cypher Maniac to ensure a checkmate, or just another Ace Rollers to make sure you never miss a turn of invincibility, this card is great insurance. Lastly, we got Town Store, and again, it's a bit of a luxury card, but being able to preemptively play this to ensure that you can always search out one particular tool is crucial in a bunch of matchups. And that tool is Crisis Punch, a genius inclusion that I missed when I initially drafted up the deck when Mega Evolution came out. We've got 2 copies of the punch, and it absolutely helps to lock up matchups like Raging Bolt and Goldingo. Acerola's invulnerability was already so crippling for them, but if you flipped too many tails, they could occasionally tank through enough 200 damage hits to outlast the Acerola chain. But when you're swinging for a guaranteed 280, there is no chance. Lastly, there's a Bravery Charm as an option to make Kangaskhan just that little bit tankier. This is always a treat and can fix up a few specific numbers like Pikachu EX and Mega Diancie with 2 Monkey Dories. As for energy, there are 7 Grass, since we always want to have at least 5 in deck to get the full value out of Forretress, 2 Mist Energy, which are mainly here to prevent one-hit KO attacks like Absol and Roaring Moon, Monkey Dories Confusion, Dragapult Spread Damage, and what's really funny is how it completely blocks Alakazam's attack, making that matchup actually pretty playable. There's also a Therapeutic Energy, and it's basically only here as a way to remove confusion if you can't get down Mist against Monkey Dory early enough. But sometimes it does come up randomly against decks that try to poison you, so I guess there's that. One quick thing that I wanted to bring up was the Transformative Start Ditto. I actually really wanted to play this card and probably would have cut either Town Store or Academy at Night, but I couldn't afford one because you didn't subscribe. So here's a deal. If you subscribe right now, you'll get recommended some really high quality, incredible Pokemon TCG videos, and it'll help me out as well. Anyway, without Ditto, you've got about a 45% chance to mulligan and only a 74% chance to open with Kangaskhan. Whereas with Ditto, you go up to a 79% chance for Kangaskhan and down to a 40% chance for a mulligan. Speaking of not being able to afford things, I also had to run one of the 60 HP Pinecos and didn't even have a playmat for this tournament. Seriously, please subscribe so I can afford these luxuries. Alright, now that we've covered all 60 cards that make up this beautiful masterpiece, let's get into the actual tournament. It's going to be a league challenge with about 30 players, so that means there'll be a full 5 best of 1 rounds. Hopefully I can win them all, or at least some of them, or at least ruin someone's day. Round 1, I am against a relatively new player on Dragapult. This matchup is already pretty chill, but even more so when they've got no idea what you're doing. I managed to pull off the perfect opener, going first and popping Forretress on turn 2 to power up both of my Kangaskhan's, even getting to chase down the energy on their Dreepy with Boss's Orders. Next turn, I pull off another Boss's Orders on Dracloak to slow them down even more. It's worth mentioning that thanks to technically being behind in prize cards, Countercatcher would have been even better here, but I just happened to have Boss's Orders instead, and it's still pretty great. After taking my 3rd KO and claiming the prize lead, despite forfeiting 2 at the start of the game, my opponent finally pieces together an attack. The Mist Energy on my benched Kangaskhan prevents the 60 spread from Phantom Dive, but that's still 200 on my active, nothing to scoff at. Well, actually maybe it is, because I've got the perfect response. On the previous turn, I used Cypher Maniac's Code Breaking to stack Pokevital A and Jumbo Ice Cream in preparation for this exact scenario. I immediately heal off all the damage and Cypher Stack another couple cards for next turn. You'll never guess which two I put on top of the deck. Then finally I swing in with Rapid Fire combo, only flipping a single heads for 250 damage. They really can't do much other than begin setting up a backup Dragapult and Phantom Diving for another 200 damage, which I instantly heal the vast majority of thanks to those couple Ice Creams I stacked last turn. Then I finish off Dragapult, going down to my final prize. At this point, the game is over, and even though he does manage to sneak in one more attack, I close things out with a boss's orders. Even if there wasn't a liability for me to target down, there was still a backup Kangaskhan on the bench for me to win next turn anyway. On to the next round, and I managed to roll probably the only completely unwinnable matchup in the entire room. My own creation, Blood Moon Ursaluna. Not only does the bear easily one-shot my Kangaskhan thanks to weakness, but I can't even protect it with Acerolas because they barely play any EX Pokemon. To somehow make things even worse, I start with Pineco. At least I'm able to bench a Kangaskhan to avoid losing on the spot, but Pineco getting knocked out is basically the same thing. Oh, and at this point, I'd assumed that they were playing Gardevoir or Dragapult, so I preemptively used Pokegear to avoid a turn 1 item lock. And of course, it failed. Why wouldn't it? There's only 16 supporters in the deck. They pieced together a turn 1 Solrock attack on my Pineco, and yeah, the game should basically be over at this point. This absolutely destroys my game plan, since now if I were to re-establish and pop Forretress, they would instead go down to 3 prize cards, easily KOing a single Kangaskhan to finish things off. But I'm not going to give up. I just have to pivot. I have one single alternative method to win this game. It's time for Forretress to shine. Making use of this obscure attack is my only real out to this otherwise unwinnable game. So I borrow the Artisan to grab another Pineco, desperately countercatcher up Lunatone, play Iono, hoping to slow them down, and finally attach a Grass Energy onto my last hope. They easily retreat back into Solrock and swing for 70, setting up Kangaskhan to be KO'd by Ursaluna on the following turn. I just bring the Lunatone back up, evolve into Forretress, and attach an energy onto Kangaskhan. Seeing as Forretress only needs one more to attack anyway, there's no point in attaching there just yet. My opponent pieces together Blood Moon Ursaluna, and I'll tell you what, it doesn't feel good to be on the other side of this card. They even have a Vengeful Punch attached, so Forretress is in serious danger. All I can do is attach a second energy, Iono them to 2, guard press for the KO, and pray. Fortunately, even with 40 damage from Vengeful Punch, I'm still just out of range for Blood Moon Ursaluna without the extra Monkey Dory damage. They go in with a Cosmic Beam, but thanks to guard press's damage reduction, that's only dealing 40 damage. I Cypher Stack a couple cards for next turn, unable to even draw them due to the lack of Kangaskhan's errand running, and now I just need to hope that they can't attack with Ursaluna this turn. Miraculously, there is no attack on their side, and now I feel like I've actually got a chance. I Cypher Stack a couple more cards while also healing back to full HP thanks to that Pokevital A that I stacked last turn. Nothing else to do but take the KO and go down to 3 prizes. Another 40 damage poke from Solrock is completely undone by my Ice Cream, and I go down to 2 prize cards. Once again, they don't attack, and I go down to my final prize. But finally, with all those cards in their hand, they piece it all together. Monkey Dory for 20, Monkey Dory for 20, Blood Moon Ursaluna EX for 240. Except, guess who used guard press on the last turn to take 30 less damage? That's right, Blood Moon Ursaluna only did 210, so I survived with 20 HP remaining. And with boss's orders on any of their 1 prize Pokemon, that's the game. I genuinely do not understand how I was able to steal that one. Taking all 6 prizes with Forretress EX should probably be illegal. And look, they probably could have made a few optimizations to their play, but can you really expect them to have any experience in that matchup? I'll take that win, and now it's on to round 3 where I'm up against a Zoroark. This should actually be a pretty decent matchup, although I do need to be careful not to punch into a full HP Zoroark if I don't have to. Because if I don't flip 2 heads, they're going to immediately respond with a 400 damage powerful Rage. I can also close out games with Crisis Punch for an exact KO, and their only real way through Acerola is with Lopunny's second attack, but I can easily out-heal that. However, I open with Pineco again. Really wishing Ditto was in the list right now so that this could stop happening. And to make things even worse, it's the 60 HP one that I shouldn't even be playing in the first place. I've got no ball search for Kangaskhan, and I'm completely terrified of getting donked by a Zorua Binding Mochi Petulant combo. Trust me, if you've watched the Vegas video, then you'll realize I know better than anyone just how real that is. So, in what is maybe a bit of an overreaction, I played Town Store for Bravery Charm and attach a Grass Energy. I mean, I've got no idea how long it'll be before I see a Kangaskhan. I might as well get ready to attack with Forretress again. This did guarantee that I survived the turn, but at what cost? My opponent was able to use Town Store for TM Evo, instantly spawning in 2 Zoroarks. Fortunately, I managed to find an Iono, which gets me Kangaskhan, but for some reason, I decide to play this absolutely terribly. Honestly, spoilers, we both played pretty bad in this match, so maybe learn from our mistakes rather than what we're actually doing. I definitely could have played this a lot slower. Zoroark is not an aggressive deck, and I'm in no real danger of having anything knocked out just yet. I could have even just attacked with Forretress if I wanted to, but instead, I got greedy and bumped the Watchtower, Ultra Balled away 2 energy, and then went in with Kangaskhan to take a KO and draw 2 cards. If that wasn't bad enough already, I didn't check my energy counts. With 3 down and 3 on Kangaskhan, that only leaves 4 more in the deck. And whoops, I didn't realize that 2 of those were in the prize cards. So now I'm stuck relying on taking KOs to unprize that energy and set up my second attacker. At least I do find the backup Kangaskhan, but knowing that I now desperately need to take prizes in order to find that third energy, I just gust up and KO a Zorua. It's not like I could have punched into Zoroark without getting extremely lucky anyway. They slap a Hero's Cape onto it and hit me for 170 with Virtuous Flame. Now my odds of getting that lucky KO have dropped from 25% to just 6.25%. Not looking great. So instead of taking those awful odds, I just Cypher Maniac's Codebreaking my final energy and a Pokevital A to the top of the deck, ensuring that I heal up enough to sneak out of Lopunny's KO range. They just attack with Zoroark again, and now I really need that next prize card to be a Grass Energy. I could try my luck at flipping some heads for a 2 or even 3 prize KO, but I decide the best odds are to just take a guaranteed KO on Reshiram, since it's a 50-50 on whether I get an energy off one of the last 4 prize cards. Not to mention that I've already whiffed on these last 2 KOs, so it's gotta work this time, right? I whiff, there are 2 Grass Energies stuck in the last 3 prize cards. Well, now I have exactly 1 win condition. Hope that my opponent messes up and that I'm somehow able to deck them out. Honestly, if I just played a bit more passive or actually checked how many energy were in my deck, this was an easy game that I'm winning 99% of the time. But instead, all I can do is stack a couple of Acerolas with Cypher Maniac and begin coping. Obviously, they don't realize that I'm unable to attack for the rest of the game and decide to tour up their Lopunny in case I was able to get really lucky with some coin flips. I rip Acerolas to stay alive, but I can't even use Ice Cream since I don't have 3 energy. This is so sad. And unfortunately, boss stalling a Reshiram isn't enough. This game was so winnable. Just look at those last 2 Grass Energies taunting me. Whatever, this hasn't made me lose any faith in the deck. Maybe just a little bit of faith in myself and how locked in I wasn't. Anyway, all we can do is try to win the rest, and next round I'm against a Raging Bolt. Would you believe it? I open up Pineco for a 3rd game in a row, and this is a matchup where they can absolutely donk it. Incredibly, they don't have any other Pokemon, so I survived the turn. And now it's time to Uno reverse card that donk. Now, this is definitely not the best play to make, since if I don't get the knockout, I could just lose on the spot if they're able to piece a few more energy onto this Teal Mask Ogerpon. But I'll tell you what, it is the funny play, and that's more than enough for me to commit to it. I pop Forretress, promote Kangaskhan, and flip heads, never punished. That was a little too quick, and I did want to test out the deck a bit more, so we played a 2nd game for fun. Yeah, I start Pineco again. This is getting ridiculous. And this time, they've got a way better start, easily taking the KO. So now my primary game plan is in shambles, but Acerolas is incredibly effective in this matchup, so I think there's still a solid chance. I've just got to keep attaching to the benched Kangaskhan and hope that they aren't able to boss it up. And they actually aren't, so as soon as they go down to 1 prize, I'm able to get my 3rd energy online, and now it's time to cook. I play the first Acerola's Mischief, so I'm immune for a turn. Unfortunately, because I didn't get to pop Forretress this game, I'm not able to make use of Crisis Punch. But that's fine. I flip Tails and don't get the KO and Sandy Shocks, but again, That's fine. They can't do anything, so I just play another Ace of Rollers and take the knockout. Then they can't do anything again, so I play another Ace of Rollers, counter catch up the Mew, and take another knockout. They still can't do anything, so I Ace of Rollers for a 4th consecutive turn, then flip heads, knock out the Latias, and win the game. Even if I didn't flip heads, I just had boss in hand to chase it down next turn and win anyway. Now that is how the deck is supposed to work. These kind of matchups like Raging Bolt and Goldingo should be near unlosable if you draw even remotely close to decent. With that absolute confidence booster locked up, I was feeling good going into the final round to try and finish up with 4 wins and only 1 loss. Hey look, they don't have a mat either. That's pretty cool, but what's not cool is them playing Gardevoir. Previously, this matchup was the biggest roadblock for the deck, but now with 4 Jumbo Ice Cream, it's actually pretty playable. Plus, this is by far the best start I've had all day, opening Kangaskhan, then benching another, as well as a Pineco, all while going first. My opponent shoves Fluttermane to disable my draw engine, then throws down another Ralts. But I've got the nuts. Ultra Ball for Forretress, counter catch up one of the Ralts, and then rip an Iono. I even get to draw a couple extra cards now that Fluttermane is out of the way. Plus, with their hand now only being 4 cards, there is no way they're hitting Rare Candy Gardevoir. I guess I was wrong. Gardevoir just does that sometimes. But they've barely got anything in hand, and with only 1 Psychic in the discard, there's a reasonable chance that after I gust up Gardevoir, it'll just be stuck in the active. And I guess there is that 12.5% chance that I just knock out Gardevoir right now. 1 heads, 2 heads, 3 heads, it's just that easy. This deck really is just able to torment your opponents in so many different ways. Like, what a ridiculous attack. The card was already broken as a 300 HP basic that draws cards when it's in the active. For some reason, the game designers thought it would be funny to give it infinite damage potential if you're lucky enough. The game's not over just yet though, because they're able to re-establish Ralts and still get off another attack with Fluttermane. I Cypher stack a couple cards, and unable to draw them due to that annoying Midnight Fluttering ability, I just take the KO and leave them on top. Things are looking really great for me. I basically have checkmate guaranteed next turn, unless they happen to rip Raw Secret Box, which allows them to Rare Candy another Gardevoir, counter catcher up my bench Kangaskhan, and knock that out with 2 Monkey Dories. The problem isn't that I'm left with a heavily damaged Kangaskhan. Nah, that's no issue. The problem is that this one already has a tool on it. If it didn't, I would just win the game on the spot with Cypher Maniac's code breaking for counter catcher and Crisis Punch, knocking out Pheasantipity. But instead, I have to try and tank through another turn. Although this really shouldn't be too difficult, since I can instead play Cypher Maniac to get Pokevital A and Ice Cream, healing 230 damage. I've got Boss's Orders in hand, so if I don't knock out Gardevoir right now, I'll easily be able to chase it down and finish it off next turn. Plus, there's always a chance that I just flip 3 heads and win right now anyway. Alright, maybe that was asking a little bit too much. But like I said, it's fine. I should just win next turn anyway with Boss's Orders. And there's no way they're going to deal 350 damage. I forgot about Mew, so I guess there is a chance they can deal 350 damage. With double Monkey Dory Adrenabrain, they actually only need to flip 2 heads, a 25% chance. Surely they don't get it though. That's 1. No way they're going to flip another head. That's 2. Alright, maybe that's a bit of karma for one-shotting the Gardevoir earlier, but to be fair, they drew really well to get out of that situation. This was a genuinely interesting game to play out though. And look, I won't lie, as much as I usually hate these kind of coin flip attacks, this was actually a ton of fun. I'm definitely going to be playing the deck a lot more and really think it can be optimized. Anyway, I finished up with a final record of 3 wins and 2 losses, placing in top 8, which is pretty respectable for this deck. But I do think that my play was absolutely lacking and the dub is 100% achievable. So I'd love to hear how you end up going with the deck. Take it to locals, take it to a challenge, take it to a cup. You know what? Take it to a regional championships. I reckon that it's got potential and really want to see someone prove it. As always, appreciate the love from all my YouTube channel members, Patreon supporters, and anyone who's checked out my Metafy. Really hope that you fellas are enjoying the bonus content that comes with that, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.